Our whole family was planning a vacation together. But when my husband's childhood friend, Bianca, found out, she begged to join us. Without a second thought, Leonardo canceled my plane ticket and gave it to her, arranging for me to travel in a hard seat on a 36-hour train ride. I looked over at my in-laws, and to my surprise, they all agreed with my husband's decision. So, I went along with the plan. I took my train ticket and traveled west. I ended up staying away for 3 months, and the whole family panicked. It was rare for my husband to get an extended vacation, so our family decided to take a long trip together. I started planning everything 6 months in advance, choosing destinations, creating an itinerary, and booking everything. Since everyone in the family was so hands-off, I ended up being responsible for flights, hotels, meals, and all activities. I didn't mind doing the work, as long as everyone was happy. Flights were hard to book, so I purchased tickets for the entire family. Early on, when my sister-in-law mentioned she had never experienced first class, I even paid out of pocket to upgrade everyone's tickets. Shortly before we were set to leave, my husband suddenly told me that Bianca had heard about the trip and wanted to join us. "Our flight is full, so you'll need to take the train." "I've already bought your ticket," he said, sending me the electronic train ticket via WhatsApp. "What's the meaning of this?" I asked. "This is supposed to be a family trip, and you're bringing Bianca along?" "If Bianca wants to come, I have to bring her. She's practically family," Leonardo replied. I was furious. When my sister asked to join us, "You were very clear that this was a family trip and you didn't want to bring anyone from outside. Now that Bianca wants to come, you agree immediately?" "Bianca and your sister are different," he said. "We're closer than family. We're practically family." I scoffed in disbelief. "I bought the plane tickets ages ago. Why do I have to take the train?" "There are no seats left on the flight, so I had to refund your ticket and get one for Bianca. The only option left for you is the train." Leonardo shrugged, completely indifferent to my opinion. I looked at the electronic ticket he sent. It was for a 36-hour hard seat. "So, you bought Bianca a first-class plane ticket while I sit for 36 hours on a train?" I asked incredulously. He smirked. "Didn't you say you liked watching the scenery from the train? Here's your chance to see it all." I looked toward my in-laws, and my father-in-law quickly turned his face away. My mother-in-law tried to comfort me. "Camila, Bianca, and Leonardo have been friends since they were little. They have so much to talk about. It makes sense for them to sit together. Just bear with it for now. We'll meet up once you arrive." My sister-in-law, Julia, chimed in. "Sis, Bianca has a delicate constitution. There's no way she could handle such a long train ride. You're strong and healthy. You can manage." I laughed bitterly. "Who is?" "Actually, it's starting to look like Bianca is your real daughter-in-law." Leonardo frowned. "It's just a train ride. It's not a big deal, and Bianca is practically family to us. It's only fair to ensure she's comfortable. Can't you be a bit more gracious and set a good example?" At that moment, the doorbell rang. My sister-in-law ran to open it. It was Bianca. "Bianca, you're here. I've been waiting for you," Julia said enthusiastically as she dragged Bianca's 2 large suitcases into the house. "Oh, Bianca, I missed you so much. If you hadn't gone abroad, you could have married my brother and we'd all be family," she exclaimed, hugging Bianca. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law held Bianca's hand and said, "Exactly. I always thought you and Leonardo would be the perfect match. In my heart, I've always seen you as my daughter-in-law. No one else could compare to you." They said this openly in front of me without a hint of shame. At that moment, my heart grew cold toward this family. Although Bianca and Leonardo had been childhood sweethearts, when Leonardo's family fell on hard times, she left the country without hesitation. It was me who helped the Oliveira family repay a $500,000 debt, and out of gratitude, Leonardo married me.
I had given so much to this family.
My parents-in-law weren't in great health, and I'd been caring for Julia since she was 10, handling everything from cooking and laundry to picking her up from school, helping with her homework, and attending her parent-teacher meetings. Now she was 15, and I had essentially raised her for 5 years. Though I was only her sister-in-law, I felt more like her mother. I had been generous to my in-laws as well, giving them a monthly allowance of $10,000 and taking care of all the household chores and meals, practically spoon-feeding them. Instead of feeling like a daughter-in-law, I often felt more like a live-in maid who paid out of her own pocket to care for this family. I never expected something in return, but despite all I'd done for them, they still treated me as less than an outsider. Bianca walked up to me with a smug smile. Sorry, Camila. If I hadn't suddenly decided to join, you wouldn't have missed out on the plane ticket and been stuck with a train seat. At first, I thought I'd skip the trip since there weren't any tickets, but Leonardo said he'd handle it. I didn't expect he'd make you take the train, though. I even offered to take the train myself, but Leonardo was worried about me sitting alone for so long. So, I guess I have to thank you for taking the inconvenience. Julia looped her arm affectionately around Bianca's. Exactly. There are all kinds of people on trains, and if a girl like you were targeted by some creeps, what would we do? Camila, on the other hand, has such a fierce look, like a warrior. She'd scare them off in no time. When she finished speaking, the two of them burst into laughter. Seeing the anger on my face, Leonardo softened his tone. All right, I know this arrangement isn't ideal for you, but it's the best solution we have. Just last week, you were eyeing that bag you wanted. Why not go ahead and get it? I held out my hand.
Sure.
$5,000. That's so expensive. I already agreed you could get it, but now you want me to pay too?
Don't push it, he snapped.
I smirked and sarcastically replied, Since when do I need your permission to spend my own money? How much do you even earn in a month? At that instant, his face flushed with embarrassment. That's not fair. His monthly salary was only $3,000, while I earned $100,000. His salary didn't even cover his own expenses. I'd been supporting this household from the start. When we got married, he didn't give me any dowry. I paid off that $50,000 debt and even added $30,000 as a wedding gift. Plus, I bought our house. This comfortable life they now enjoyed was all thanks to me. If they loved Bianca that much, then they could have her as their daughter-in-law instead. Camila, hurry up and make dinner. It's already late, and everyone's hungry, my mother-in-law urged. I didn't reply to her and turned to Bianca with a smile. Bianca, you and Leonardo grew up together, so I assume you used to eat here a lot? Of course. Back then, Leonardo and I practically had every meal together, Bianca chirped. So after all these years abroad, you must really miss Mom's cooking, right? I looked at my mother-in-law and continued, Mom, shouldn't you get started on dinner for Bianca? After speaking, I sat down on the couch and turned on the TV. Shortly after, Leonardo came over annoyed. How could you make Mom cook? You know her health isn't great. Get up and make dinner. Feigning surprise, I replied, Mom, you're unwell? Is it serious? Why didn't you tell me? My mother-in-law snapped back, irritated. Who's unwell? I'm fine. Stop trying to curse me. Then why don't you want to cook for Bianca? Don't feel like it. I asked in amusement. Instantly, her expression soured. Who said I wouldn't cook? She went to the kitchen and spent the next 2 hours preparing dinner. When it was ready, Julia pulled Bianca into my seat. Sis, Bianca is a guest. You don't mind giving up your spot, right? My mother-in-law chimed in, handing me a bowl. If sitting at the edge is uncomfortable, why don't you take your plate to the kitchen and eat there? And while you're at it, clean up a bit. So now I wasn't even allowed at the table. No need, you all enjoy. My friend invited me out, so I'll eat with them, I flatly declined. Leonardo looked irritated. We're leaving for our trip tomorrow, and you're still going out. Did you pack yet? Don't you have hands? Why don't you pack? I argued back, stunned by my response. He fell silent, and I headed out. I treated myself to a high-end dinner at a fancy restaurant, ordering steak, wine, and lobster. With my own money, I could dine wherever I wanted. I stayed out until well past midnight, enjoying my time. When I returned, the house was dark despite me being out so late. No one had called or texted to check in. Apparently, they had all gone to bed without a second thought. Feeling my way through the darkness, I entered the bedroom and sat on the bed, only to be startled by a piercing scream.
Ah,
I quickly turned on the light and saw Bianca lying in my spot. The sight made my blood boil. Without thinking, I slapped her across the face. Bianca burst into tears, and Leonardo sat up, shielding her. "Why did you hit Bianca?" "We were just talking and must have fallen asleep accidentally." "Oh, really? So you just accidentally ended up in bed together, holding each other?" I huffed in anger. "We were waiting for you. You were out so late, so Bianca stayed to keep me company. We talked for a while, and then we fell asleep." "It's perfectly normal," Leonardo thundered. "Then why didn't you call or text me? Too busy talking with your best friend? And you two couldn't wait in the living room and had to come to the bedroom?" Leonardo scowled. "You're being unreasonable, Camila." I was done arguing. I turned to Bianca. "I'm back now, so why don't you leave? Or do you expect all three of us to share the beds?" Ignoring my remarks, Bianca clutched her face and whimpered. "Leonardo, it really hurts." Leonardo, filled with concern, replied, "I'll get you some medicine." After they left the room, I immediately shut the bedroom door and locked it. Then I changed all the bed sheets and covers, put on earbuds, and went straight to sleep. The next morning, Leonardo stormed up to me, furious. "What was that last night? I knocked for a long time, yet you didn't open the door. Mom and Dad woke up because of it. You did that on purpose, didn't you?" Sneering, I deadpanned, "Yes, I did it on purpose. I thought I'd give you a chance to sleep with Bianca. You should be thanking me." Hearing my words, Leonardo looked exasperated. "Are you nuts, Camila? Why would I sleep with Bianca?" After that morning, something inside me shattered completely. It wasn't just anger. It was a mix of humiliation, exhaustion, and a clarity I had never felt before. I spent the entire day pretending everything was fine, helping with the final preparations for the trip, but inside, my mind was racing. Every word, every gesture from these people seemed to push me further toward an inevitable decision. At dinner, I sat at the table, observing the dynamic around me. Bianca was laughing loudly, holding Julia's hand, making exaggerated comments about how excited she was for the trip. My father-in-law barely looked at me, too busy with his phone, and my mother-in-law intentionally ignored my presence, treating Bianca like she was the host of the house. Leonardo, as usual, acted like nothing was wrong, as if this whole situation was perfectly normal. I knew if I spoke up, they'd accuse me of making a scene or not understanding their bond. So, I stayed silent, letting my disdain grow like a poisonous plant inside me. After dinner, while everyone was laughing in the living room, I went upstairs and started packing. But not for the trip. I gathered important documents, credit cards, and some valuable items, packing them discreetly into a small suitcase. I left most of my clothes behind since my departure needed to be quick and quiet. Before heading downstairs, I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the dresser. I stared at it for a moment, feeling nothing. It meant nothing to me anymore. I walked down the stairs calmly, glancing at the scene in the living room. Leonardo was sprawled on the couch with Bianca sitting beside him, laughing at something she said. Julia was taking selfies with Bianca, while my mother-in-law brought tea for everyone. No one noticed when I grabbed my bag and walked out the front door without looking back. I hailed a cab and went straight to a hotel. I didn't want to return to my parents' house, where I'd likely be judged or pressured to save my marriage. That night, I started organizing my next steps. I called the bank, froze all joint accounts, and canceled the credit cards under Leonardo's name. I also messaged my lawyer, asking him to initiate divorce proceedings immediately. The next morning, I went to the bank in person to transfer money from our joint accounts to my personal one. Leonardo had no savings of his own and could barely cover his expenses with his $3,000 salary. Without my financial support, I knew he wouldn't be able to maintain the comfortable lifestyle he'd grown used to. Later that afternoon, Leonardo began texting and calling me. "Where are you? Did you forget your passport? Why aren't you answering?" I read his messages but didn't respond. That evening, Bianca called me from her number. I ignored it, but she left a voicemail. Camila, this is getting serious. Leonardo is really worried. You should have handled this more maturely. I don't know what you think you're doing, but it's not helping anyone. If you need help, I can talk to you. Help? I laughed bitterly in my hotel room. Bianca genuinely thought she had the moral high ground to lecture me about maturity. I blocked her number immediately. The following day, I visited the house I had bought with my own money and instructed my lawyer to start the process of removing Leonardo from the property. I wasn't about to let him live off me any longer while treating me like dirt. Since he had contributed nothing financially, my lawyer assured me the house was legally mine. Before leaving town, I stopped by my parents' place and made it clear I didn't want interference or any attempts at reconciliation. I briefly explained what had happened and told them I needed time for myself. They seemed shocked but understanding. Leonardo eventually managed to contact me through his father's phone. Camila, what do you think you're doing? You can't just disappear like this and leave us all worried. What kind of wife does that? My laughter was cold. What kind of husband gives his wife's plane ticket to his mistress disguised as a childhood friend? Leonardo, you should be grateful I put up with this for as long as I did. Now, enjoy your new life. I hope Bianca can afford to support you, because I'm done. You can't do this to me, Camila. It's not fair. Think about Julia, about my parents. You can't just abandon us. I've already done more for your family than you deserve. Maybe it's time for all of you to learn how to fend for yourselves. I hung up before he could respond. I felt a mix of relief and anger. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Over the next few days, Leonardo and Bianca tried different tactics to reverse the situation. First, he tried to reconcile, claiming I was overreacting. Then Bianca attempted to play the peacemaker, saying she didn't know how much her presence had upset me. I didn't care. I was gone. I left the city for a few months and focused on myself. I revisited personal projects I had put on hold and started rebuilding my life away from all that toxicity. When I returned, things had drastically changed. Leonardo, desperate, filed a claim to try and get part of my assets. He claimed he was entitled to the house, but when I learned that Leonardo had filed a claim to take part of my assets, I wasn't surprised. It was predictable that he would try to exploit some loophole. After all, he had never been capable of supporting himself, let alone someone like Bianca, who seemed to live in a fantasy world funded by others. What he didn't expect was that I was prepared. On the day of the hearing, I entered the courtroom with my lawyer, head held high. Leonardo was there, accompanied by Bianca, who seemed eager to show how much she was supporting him. But their confidence quickly turned to unease when my lawyer presented evidence proving that I had paid for everything: the house, the family's $500,000 debt, and all household expenses. He also revealed bank statements showing that Leonardo had spent over 80% of the joint account funds on frivolities, often gifts for Bianca, as made clear by receipts included in the evidence. As my lawyer laid out the case, it became apparent to everyone in the courtroom that Leonardo had no right to my assets. He hadn't contributed anything financially or emotionally during the marriage. Even the judge seemed irritated by his audacity in trying to claim what wasn't his. Bianca, who had been smiling smugly, started to look visibly uncomfortable as more evidence piled up. But I wasn't done yet. When it was my turn to speak, I stood and looked directly at Leonardo. For years, I was your wife, your partner, and the only reason your family managed to recover from financial ruin. I paid off your debts, supported your home, cared for your parents, and practically raised your sister. And how did you repay me? By giving away my plane ticket to your so-called childhood friend, letting her take my place in every sense of the word, while I was treated like an unpaid servant. And now, you have the audacity to come here and try to take what's mine? The house that I bought with my own monies? Leonardo tried to interject, but the judge silenced him, reminding him that he would have his chance to speak. I continued, turning to Bianca. As for you, Bianca, you act like you're special, like you're above everyone else. But deep down, you're just someone who leeches off others. You left this country when his family faced financial troubles, only to return when their comfortable life was restored, thanks to me. And now you're sitting here, thinking you'll walk away with something? Let me make this clear. You two deserve each other because you're both shallow, selfish, and have nothing of substance to offer anyone." Bianca turned red, looking nervously around the courtroom, while Leonardo avoided meeting my gaze. The judge, after hearing everything, not only denied Leonardo's claim but also ordered him to pay court costs and a fine for filing a baseless lawsuit. When the verdict was read, I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. They had tried to take everything, but I walked out with my dignity intact, and theirs in shreds. After the hearing, Leonardo tried to approach me in the hallway. "Camila, wait.
Can we talk?"
I looked at him, unable to hide a bitter laugh.
Talk.
"Now you want to talk? After everything?" "No, Leonardo. I think I've heard enough. Enjoy your new life with Bianca. I hope she's ready to support you, because I'm done." I walked out of the courthouse without looking back. There was nothing more to say or hear. In the months that followed, I heard that Leonardo's life fell apart. Without my financial support, he lost his car and was evicted from the house he was living in. Bianca, of course, vanished as quickly as she had reappeared in his life, leaving him to deal with the consequences of his choices alone. I heard he had moved back in with his parents, who were also struggling now that my assistance was gone. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. I invested in myself, grew in my career, and even bought a new home, bigger and more beautiful than the last one. I realized that the freedom of not carrying the weight of ungrateful people was the greatest wealth I could have. I made new friends, reconnected with old ones, and allowed myself to live without fear of being manipulated or taken advantage of. One day, while walking through the city center, I saw Leonardo sitting on a park bench, looking tired and defeated. He noticed me, but before he could say anything, I turned and walked away. He was a ghost of my past, and I had no interest in resurrecting him. At last, I was free. Free from them, their manipulations, their ingratitude, and the burden of supporting a family that had never valued me. For the first time in years, my life truly felt like my own.